in 2007, I couldn't sit up like I am here. I had to be in a zero gravity chair with my knees higher than my nose. And now in 2024, where you would expect, because I have secondary progressive MS, that I'd be continuing on the downhill track. But instead, what's happening is I'm continuing to get stronger. I strength train with body exercises, and I balance train. I swim, I bike, I jog. I decided that it's probably better to jog on the treadmill than over uneven ground outside. But, John, I'm just so thrilled that I'm still making progress.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And all the guests from around the world are saying, okay, we know where Canada is, we know where BC or British Columbia is. Where is Prince George? Well, we know where Vancouver is. We are about 500 miles north of Vancouver. A beautiful area. Nature at its greatest here. And today, a very special day, a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Terry Wahls, PhD, and a very interesting, and she is also a clinical professor of the medicine on the University of Iowa, where she conducts clinical trials. She is also a patient with secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, which confined her to a tilt-reclining wheelchair for 4 years. Dr. Terry, can I call you Dr. Terry?
Oh, yeah, perfectly fine.
Okay. So you have an amazing history in what you're doing now, obviously. Can you share with our guests as to your background and then...
Story.
Yeah.
So I'm an internal medicine physician. I'm in practice, and about 24 years ago, out walking with my wife Jackie, my left leg grows weak, so dragging it, we hobble, get me home. I see the neurologist. He does an exam and says, Terry, this could be bad or really, really bad. And we start doing, the MRIs and the various blood work. And, I'm thinking about the fact I've had 20 years of worsening electrical face pain, straight at my temple, coming down my jaw. And so I don't want to become disabled, John, so I'm secretly praying for a fatal diagnosis.
Right.
3 weeks later, after the spinal tap and everything comes back, my neurologist says, Terry, this is multiple sclerosis. I do my research. I find the very best MS center in the country. I take the newest drugs. And 3 years later, I hear tilt-recline wheelchair because things have gotten relentlessly worse. I take mitochondria in a form of chemotherapy, does not help. I take Tysabri, the new biologic agent, that does not help. Then I'm switched to Cellcept. And John, then I ask myself a really important question. Am I doing all that I can? And, I am a physician. I'm not a neurologist, but I decided to begin reading the basic science, and I started experimenting.
As a medical person, especially at your level, you are kind of an informed person, but not necessarily
Absolutely.
on MS, right?
Right. So I go to PubMed, I start reading the basic science, the animal model studies for multiple sclerosis, for Parkinson's, for Alzheimer's, for ALS, for Huntington's. And I decide, John, that it's mitochondrial dysfunction that leads to the disability. So, again, more research and study, and I eventually create a supplement cocktail to support my mitochondria, and the speed of my decline slows, and I'm very grateful.
So what you had a word there that I didn't quite understand.
Oh, mitochondria. So
okay.
Mitochondria are the powerhouse for the cells. That's the cell needs a currency of energy to run the chemistry of life.
Okay.
And so for all of our cells, we rely on mitochondria to do that.
Okay.
And my theory was that the mitochondria were not working as efficiently. And that's what was causing the problems in the brain, the spinal cord, and why I was becoming more disabled. And I did, so again, more study. I create a supplement cocktail for my mitochondria. And I can tell I feel much better taking my supplement cocktail than if I don't take it. The speed of my decline is slowing. I'm
So
still
you've been
declining.
now in a wheelchair as you're talking.
I'm in a wheelchair. And,
Yeah.
and I'm so weak, John, I cannot sit up anymore.
Right.
Fortunately, my brain is still clear.
Ooh.
So at work, I'm in a zero gravity chair with my knees higher than my nose. And that's how I staff the resident clinic. And that's how I go to the Institute of the IRB. It's a committee that reviews research. And I'm on that committee. And I tell them, give me all of your brain studies, because I'm getting more and more comfortable reading the research.
Right.
Adding to my list of supplements. I get a study using electrical stimulation of muscles for people who are going to be paralyzed, never walk again. And so I thought, could that help me? I
Electro-stimulating my muscles.
yes. So you put these pads on the skin,
Okay.
and you go to the electrical therapy device, turn on the current.
External, Cherry.
It's external.
This
So
all
the
external.
pads would be on the legs, the quadriceps, and the hamstrings. And so I talked to my physical therapist. He says, we use that for athletes. And yes, Terry,
Yeah.
I can grow bigger muscles for you, but I don't know if your brain can talk to the muscles. I could be potentially making things worse if I add more weight to your legs that you can't use.
Right.
But he gives me a test session. It hurts bad. I mean, really quite bad. But when it's over, I feel great. He tells me it's from the endorphins that are released with the electrical stimulation. And so we start adding electrical stimulation to my little tiny workouts that I'm doing for my physical therapy.
Right.
My boss at the hospital calls me into his office and tells me he's sending me to the traumatic brain injury clinic, and I'll have to start seeing patients there, no residents. I'll be part of a multidisciplinary team. I'll start in January, so in about 3 or 4 months. And he describes the job, and I realize, okay, physically, I'm not strong enough to do that. But at that same time, I discovered the electrical stimulation. I've added that. I discover an organization called the Institute for Functional Medicine. And they had a course on neuroprotection. So I order that course. It's a big notebook of cases and a bunch of lectures that are PowerPoints with the audio synchronized. So I go through all of that. I have a longer list of supplements, John. And I go out, buy them, and I start them. And then I have this big aha. What if I redesign my paleo diet that I've been doing for 5 years based on this list of nutrients and figure out where these nutrients are in the food supply? So that's a few more months of research. But I get that sorted out, and I have a list of the various foods that I need to be adding. And I start this new way of eating December 26th. Now, for your listeners, what I want people to know is, my face pains have been getting progressively more severe. I'm beginning to have brain fog. I can't sit up. I can take a couple steps with 2 walking sticks. It's very clear to me that I'm on track to become bedridden by my illness.
Yeah.
Probably demented by my illness.
Yeah.
And probably have this horrible electrical face pain turned permanently on.
Yeah.
Now, I've got young kids. My son's 16, my daughter's 13. It's a lot. So I've redesigned my diet.
So Ben, how long ago was that, Cherry?
So I've been a vegetarian for 20 years.
Yeah.
2 years into my diagnosis, my neurologist talked to me about the work of Lauren Cordain. And I actually, got his book and decided that I would go back to eating meat, and I adopted the paleo diet. And I continued to go downhill, John, but I thought I didn't know how long it would take to recover. It's like, and besides, I knew with progressive MS, recovery doesn't happen. And if all I do is slow my decline, that's that may be all I can do. So, and I had slowed my decline, or so it seemed. December 26th, 2007, I now have a very structured paleo diet of what I should be eating.
2007, you said, right?
2007.
Yeah, 16
January
years
comes
ago.
along. I have to go to this new clinic.
Yeah,
No residents, me and my new partners. The first 2 weeks, I'm just watching.
yeah,
The third week, I have to start seeing the patients on my own.
right.
So Monday, I do that. I see my patients, write the notes, come home, and I tell Jackie it went okay. And by the way, honey, could I sit up in a regular chair for supper? Which I've not done in years. So,
Yeah.
so we let me sit up in a regular chair, have supper, and that goes okay. And then, the next day I go back to the hospital, go to the traumatic brain injury clinic, and do that every day. And then on Friday, I come home and I say, honey, I think I can do this. And then when I see my physical therapist, he says, Terry, you're definitely stronger. He has me start doing my exercises 10 minutes twice a day, then 15 minutes twice a day, then 20 minutes twice a day, then 30 minutes twice a day. And then, John, I start walking in the hospital with 2 walking sticks, stunning my colleagues.
So the thing that had happened then, correct me if I'm wrong, the electric impulses you were still using, and you changed your diet.
I changed my diet. I added the electrical stimulation. I decided that, I hadn't been meditating. I had learned meditation during college. I don't know why I stopped during medical school, but I did. So I finally went back to meditating. And yes, I had this long list of supplements. But the electrical stimulation made exercise much easier. I start walking with 2 walking sticks, then with 1 walking stick. And then in April, I tell Jackie I'd like to try riding my bike, which I hadn't done in 6 years.
2008 now?
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah,
So we're
April
about 5 months into
2008,
it.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
And Jackie says, well, honey, if things keep going well, maybe in the fall we can do that.
Right.
Well, 2 weeks later, on
Riding
Mother's
your
Day,
bike. Yeah.
on Mother's Day, I'm like, I really want to try riding my bike. We have another family meeting, and Jackie decides that, okay, we can try. So my 16-year-old son, who's 6'5", football player, said, Zach, you run alongside in the left. My 13-year-old daughter, Zebby, you run alongside in the right, and I'll follow. We all get into position, and then Jack says, okay, push off. And I bike around the block. And,
Unbelievable.
my 16-year-old boy, he's crying.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old girl, she's crying. I'm crying.
Sure.
Jackie's crying.
Sure.
And, this really, for people with a progressive neurologic disorder, John,
Correct.
you let go of the future.
Yeah.
You decide you'll just take each day as it unfolds. So even though I was remarkably better,
Yeah.
able to walk, short walks, around the block, I was still taking each day as it unfolded. But the day I rode my bike, I realized that the current understanding of multiple sclerosis is incomplete.
Correct.
And who knows how much recovery might be possible.
Right.
And so I kept biking a little bit further. And come October, Jackie signed us up for the Courage Ride, 18.5 miles. And it was hard going 18 miles. But man, when I finished that, my children were crying, Jackie was crying, I'm crying. And this fundamentally changes how I think about disease and health.
So the general understanding, even among professionals, was that it is a progressive neurological disease that at best you can maintain at a level, but more than likely it will gradually disintegrate even further. And once you're to the level of where you have to sit in a reclining stool or wheelchair, then and you can barely sit up, you're well progressed to the point that the next steps are going to be much more difficult and may put you even to the point where you really cannot function anymore.
Yeah, people with multiple sclerosis over time, 90% will convert to the progressive phase of the illness,
Right.
needing a wheelchair. Eventually, it's difficult to sit up. You may lose your arms. And of course, there's a higher rate of cognitive decline, early need for assisted living, early need for nursing home care.
So at one point, that from my perspective is that I was I go to the gym quite a bit. To give you just a bit of background on myself, I'm going to be 84 this year in November.
Very good.
Yeah, I was born in 1940, and I'm into fitness, physical, and my wife is vegetarian. I'm a vegan, and I'm also into bodybuilding. I'm also an author. I wrote about 4 books, and I'm writing one that is this one here. Can you see it? It's Living Young, Dying
Yeah, I love
Old.
that.
Yeah, pictures me.
Yes.
And so I'm now training to get to the gym and then to train at the Arnold's in 2025 when I'm 85. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. But that's not the
That's
story.
very impressive, my friend. Yeah.
What I wanted to share with you is that I was going to the gym this couple of years ago already. I was training, and there was one fella that would go to the gym on crutches, and he was really, really struggling, and he was there all the time, and there is a tendency for individuals not to interact because how you going to interact, but I'm not one of those. So I got to know him a little bit, and I said, what happened? And he said, MS, and I said, I didn't know much about MS other than in a general sense. And and I said, what happened? He said, I was a mechanic. I worked in one of the lumber mills here, and then stayed in an apartment. And then one day he said, I said, how did it happen? It just had happened gradually. He said, John, the way it happened is I walked down, I took the elevator down to the bottom of the apartment. I walked to my truck. I barely put my hand on the door, and I fell over. And that was the beginning of it.
Ugh.
In the one leg. And he was to the stage where probably, the way he was moving around I have not seen him in quite a number of years, but it really left an impression with me. Now
I'm so glad he was working out. That he
now the other part is that I have one of the employees of one of my company has been with us her name is Linda, and she has been with us for more than 40 years, is a forklift truck driver, kind of manages the lumber yard, and very, very go, and she has MS. But it seems to, already for quite a number of years, she's getting medicines of some sort, and the docs are watching her closely, but she comes to work every day, and she seems to be pretty good and stable.
Yeah, the medications have done a really good job of turning off the acute inflammations, the acute new enhancing lesions. The medicines, however, don't do a good job of preventing that slow decline, that conversion to the progressive phase of the illness. They've delayed it, the time to wheelchair by about 5 years. And so, that's very helpful. The good news, John, is there's more research in terms of the benefit of diet, of exercise, of a mindful meditation program. And so, the ideas that I talked about early on, that you have to fix the nutrition. The standard American diet or the standard Canadian diet, full of added sugars, what we call ultra processed foods. So foods that have really the nutrition stripped out of it, flour-based cereals, pastas, breads, that the industrialized processing of food decreases the nutrition, and we're literally starving. So
Right.
here in the United States, I assume it's probably true for Canada
Yes, I'm
and,
sure.
and most westernized nations, 70% of the calories are from these ultra processed foods. We know in all the studies that diets high in that sugar, white flour based foods, higher rates of multiple sclerosis, higher rates of Alzheimer's, higher rates of Parkinson's, higher rates of anxiety and depression. That eating these
As a
radical things, known
as a result of Cherry.
well, I think during World War II, we created a industrialized food process to make all of the rations for the soldiers and the military personnel. When the
Right.
war ended, these food companies created these products for the newly liberated women of the world and said, use these. And so we have steadily outsourced our cooking.
Yeah.
The vegetable consumption's gone steadily downhill,
Yeah.
and the sugar and white flour consumption's gone steadily up. And that's ruining our health.
So the interesting part about it, Cherry, is that my wife will be watching this because this is precisely what she has been talking about for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me longer than her, but I'm probably vegan 90-10, and then she is vegetarian. And,
Yeah.
and then the interesting part that you may find is that I do all the shopping, and so when I go to a store, I go to the outside of the store and
Yep,
I look
that's the
for
way to go. Forget
plant-based,
the middle side.
organic food because everything else
Yeah.
is processed, and we don't go there.
Yeah, the processed food companies, keep adapting, try and make ultra processed foods that's okay for ketogenic eaters or paleo eaters, or supposedly healthy, but they're still ultra processed. I'd much rather talk to people about these radical things known as vegetables, about the benefits of some seaweed, about the benefits of making sauerkraut and kimchi. It's a fun project, and we've got several quarts of sauerkraut brewing on our kitchen counter right now.
I love it, and my wife
Yeah.
will love it. Is that now the other thing is, so the last thing that we said about you is you were 18 kilometers on your bike. So what? How did you progress
Oh, actually, it was
further?
18 miles
18 miles.
on the bike. So
So
a little further than the kilometers, but
so how did
I've
you
continued
progress further to where? How are you doing physically today?
right now. So I'm up to jogging now, not fast. And
Unbelievable.
so I mean, again for all the listeners, in 2007, I couldn't sit up like I am here.
Yeah.
I had to be in a zero gravity chair with my knees higher than my nose. And now in 2024, where you would expect, because I have secondary progressive MS, that I'd be continuing on the downhill track, but instead, what's happening is I'm continuing to get stronger. I strength train with body exercises, and I balance train. I swim, I bike, I jog. I decided that it's probably better to jog on the treadmill than over uneven ground outside. But John, I'm just so thrilled that I'm still making progress. And I'm 68 now.
You
I had hoped when
reversed. You
I
reversed
reversed
it in
profound disability.
yeah.
And then,
So
John, the other thing that I want to stress is it's not just me. So we've done clinical trials. And then I teach people. I see people in my private clinic. We do a variety of online programs all of the time, and we've had other individuals with progressive multiple sclerosis also reverse their disability, go from walker to jogging. We've had people who like me, profoundly disabled, unable to sit up, struggling to do their own wheelchair to toilet transfers or wheelchair to bed transfers, who were in their 50s. And, we got them going on the diet. We got them going on meditation. We got them going on electrical stimulation, physical therapy. Their physical therapist and their physician said, you have secondary progressive MS, you're not going to get better. And she said, yes, I am.
Yeah.
And we helped her get her programs going. It's 3 years. She was so proud. She said, I could stand 60 seconds. I could stand 2 minutes. That was a big deal. I was able to do my transfer to the toilet independently. I could get into bed independently. Then the next thing she was so excited about, I took 5 steps. And then I took 10 steps. And now she can walk in her neighborhood with her walker. Now she's not jogging yet, but she's definitely getting better. She's another Canadian, by the way.
Oh, is she? Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So yes, we help people, and I also do these clinical trials. We've done many clinical trials, studying a variety of diets. We've done the low saturated fat swank diet, the modified paleo diet, the ketogenic diet, and we're able to show that by helping people move away from their standard diet to any one of these diets, we can reduce the fatigue, improve quality of life. It takes about a year to see the walking improve as a group. Now, some folks will experience remarkable improvements very quickly within 3 months.
Yeah.
But it's possible. So everyone who's listening, even if you have a profound disability, I want you to know that there are always things that we can do that can improve our circumstances.
Where do they get information, Terry?
If you come, so I have a website, terrywahls.com. That's TERRY, Wahls, WAHLS.com. And we do a variety of programs. So we have pre-recorded programs, but we also have live programs. I'm doing one right now. Every couple of months, we've got a program that we do where people get the lessons, then have a chance to have a part of the live Q&A. And people really love that because they get to come in, ask their questions, or we have a discussion about some of the challenges that people are experiencing. Man, you have good technology there, John. Your team's really on the ball, so thank you. You guys are good.
Yeah, we like it. Yeah. So it's not only for people with MS, it sounds to me, but it also relates to diet in a general sense, like healthy living. Because if I look at, like Living Young, Dying Old, the book that I wrote and that is coming out in July, then it's substantially about, the age is just a number, but how do you stay fit and healthy? And a lot of that is diet and lifestyle and diet and exercise, and then
it's absolutely eating these radical things our grandmothers called vegetables.
Yeah. Exactly.
And making sure you have enough protein, and you can do that as a vegetarian or a vegan, or you can do that as a meat eater, and healthy fats, and avoiding these processed foods that have stripped the nutrition out, so you're left with calories. And then these processed foods have a lot of additives that are there to trick our brains into over-consuming.
Yeah.
And to create cravings and addictions. They also interfere with the microbes that live in our gut and create microbiome problems. So You know, the
So,
advice I like to give, John, one more thing. The advice I like to give my patients and my tribe is, if your grandmother or great-grandmother could not have gotten this food or recognized this as food, it's probably not good for you. But if
yeah,
your grandmother could have recognized it as food, it is probably good for you.
yeah. So, in a general sense, people are becoming more aware of it, but not to the extent. We have a lot of people that are not healthy, and a lot of it is preventable. Not even speaking about the obvious: don't smoke, obviously, excessive drinking. I don't drink. And lifestyle in a general sense are all low-hanging fruit, relatively speaking, in terms of your body is a unique part that wants to be healthy, is very forgiving, but only to a certain point. And then, in a lot of cases, people that get older, the last decade of their lives, in a lot of cases, are difficult and
Very difficult.
very difficult. And the objective, at least from my perspective, is saying that I want to be as old as possible. I say sometimes tongue in cheek a little bit. I want to be 120. So
Hey, that's a good number. I tell my tribe is I plan to be thriving at 120. I still want to be doing research. I still want to be teaching the medical students, the young postdocs learning to do research. I still want to be traveling the world, teaching them the importance of diet and lifestyle. And when I get to 120 and I'm thriving, I might reevaluate and decide that I'm going to go for 140 or 150.
yeah,
But the goal is I'm going to thrive and do well.
Now,
Um,
from your perspective, Terry, as a medical doctor and PhD, and all of those things that you are involved in, the medical school in Iowa, or the University of Iowa, which has a very high rating as one of the better universities in the United
yeah.
States, are we
Yes.
moving collectively in the right direction? Meaning that it is not necessarily all pills. There are a lot of people they have a handful of medicines they have to eat. Rather, are we moving to things that are more progressive in terms of well-being and health and fitness?
You know what I think is happening is the public is catching on that larger numbers of the public are very interested in this complementary alternative medicine. They're very interested. What can I do with diet? What could I do with targeted supplements? What could I be doing with lifestyle, my exercise? And they're expecting to have guidance and support for that. And if their medical team won't provide it, then they'll look for other practitioners who may be providing that. And it's part of why, part of what I do is I teach online courses so I can teach hundreds and thousands of people at a time how to begin this journey. I still want them to work with their personal medical team because as you improve your diet and lifestyle, your blood pressure improves, your blood sugar improves, your mood improves. And if you're on prescription meds, the doses that you need for these prescription meds will decline. And so I warn everyone, you have to talk to your personal physician, let them know that you're working on your diet and lifestyle so they can monitor your medications and make sure you're not over medicated, because very consistently we see people lose weight, blood pressures improve, blood sugars improve, the doses of the medications decline, and then eventually they're on fewer and fewer drugs. That is a very consistent finding.
Right. And then at the same time, stay fit. Fitness is so important, and you don't have to I showed you a picture of I'm a bodybuilder, but that's not the point that I'm making. There is simply the reason that I do that is I want to go to the gym, and I started. I had in 2008 I was then 68, and I had a case of diverticulitis and a ruptured, and it got quite close to that. I came that close actually to not making it, and because I waited too long, and then that sent me a signal that I had to. Although my wife had been preaching it for a long time, diet and all the other kinds of stuff, I was pretty good, but not quite as good as I should be and could be. And so it gave me the message that I was just like a lot of other people, is that at the end of the year, we always say, okay, the end of the year, I'm going to do this, that for next year, this, that, and then I'm going to get a membership to the gym. And then we get the membership, and then 2 weeks later, we can find 100 reasons as to why we have no time to go. And until the next year.
Very common.
So what I did is that I listened more closely to my wife, who's a vegetarian, and started looking towards my diet, and then at the same time hired a trainer and went to the gym and started training then. After I've been in the gym for about, and I take it very serious. When I'm down there, I'm there to work, so. After I was there for 6-7 years, somebody came up to me, and now I was already well into my 70s already, and somebody said, "Hey, have you ever thought about competing?" And I said, "Me?"
Okay. John, you have me curious. I want you to take off your shirt so we can show off your pecs.
I can do that for you. It looks like this.
I think you should.
Okay, let me do it.
Yeah, I think that'll be super fun.
Okay, there you go,
Don't worry,
guys.
I'm leaving my shirt on, everyone. So
I'm just going to take off my speaker here, my thing.
okay. Hey man, you're looking good. Very nice, very nice. All right.
I'm still working on it, but I'm going to be competing with Arnold. And the Arnolds in 2025, and I'm 85. And I've been contacting Arnold, and I said, I need you on my podcast. And I want to be competing with you and the Arnolds in 2025. And,
Did he say yes?
He hasn't responded to me yet. And, so what I'm saying to him is,
Right.
I'll be back.
Oh,
So I looked okay, huh, for 84-year-old.
that is very good.
Yeah.
That is very good.
So what happened then? So then I started thinking to myself, yeah, maybe why not, right? So it gave me then a goal, and going to the gym, and then started to do it in a serious way, and then started competing, and then in northern British Columbia, I started competing here in the north, and in my class I came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique. That qualified me for the provincials, and there I came third in bodybuilding, second in physique. That qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And so, yeah, so the point that I'm making is that kind of changed my life, because now all of a sudden, I became more progressive in terms of diet, but also in terms of fitness. And the beauty of fitness is that once you start doing it and you see a result and you stay the course, it makes you feel better. Mm-hmm. And so that alone is already very, very rewarding. And so what I say to people, if they hear what I'm doing and trying to be a competitive bodybuilder, which I am, then I say you don't have to do that, but at least at a minimum, walk 20 minutes a day or a half an hour a day, and then keep doing it, enjoy it, and you will see the results.
Correct. I mean, and I for the people with a neurological problem, I stress that moving your body, being sure that stuff that you enjoy, it will be very helpful. And there are many kinds of exercises that will be good for you.
Yes.
It's not that there's one perfect exercise. I need it to be fun for you, and certainly stretching, balance, strength, aerobic. Those four components are ideally
Yeah.
what I'd like to see in your workout. But the first thing is begin moving, have fun. If you can find somebody to exercise with, that will make it more enjoyable. For me, it's always worked out best to wake up, meditate, and then go do my workout, and then
Yeah.
get on with my day.
And
If I
then,
work out first thing in the morning, I am much more consistent.
yeah, and I agree with that, Terry. And the other part is sleep is important. And I try to have
Yeah.
7 to 8 hours sleep a night. And, so yeah,
Well, I'll confess, sleep has always been difficult for me. I always have had ideas, lots of plans. And so when I was younger in my life, I thought, okay, if I only have 4 hours of sleep, that's fine. I have a lot that I want to do. I now know, of course, that is really bad for me. So now that I've paid much more attention to, I have to have a consistent getting up time, a consistent winding down time in the evening. And if I wake up during the night, I do meditations during the night. And so now my sleep is much better. I'm much more somewhere between that 6.5 to 8 hours.
yeah,
But it began first with realizing I have to take care of my sleep.
yeah,
And the first step is going back to you get up at the same time of day
yeah,
every day, 7 days a week. That's very helpful.
yeah,
And to have a consistent winding down routine at night.
yeah. Yeah, I like that. And so what I usually do is rather, I was academically not a success story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times in Holland. And then they said, what are we going
Oh
to do
dear.
with this guy? I failed grade 7 3 times. And so they said, my parents were beautiful people. And so they said, send him to a mentally challenged school. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. So we'll get him at 13. We'll train him as in career in working with his hands. And so they sent me to a furniture factory. And so I became a furniture maker. Now, the other part about me is that I was born in Holland in 1940 during the war, saw far too much that we should not have seen, and
Oh yeah.
then we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. It made such an impression on me at 5 years old that I always knew I was going to the land of my heroes, Canada. And then my dad worked in the lumber industry and my grandfather was a master carpenter. Then I always felt somewhat that, because kids are sometimes hard on each other, all those friends that I had in grade 7 and other friends that went on to college and university, I became a laborer and they looked down. I'm proud of that today, but then I was kind of looked down at. And so I felt I wanted to go to the land of my heroes. I wanted to start with nothing, and I was going to build my own lumber mill in northern British Columbia. And so I came to Vancouver in mid-July. I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job, and talked to somebody at the immigration department and told them what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a lumber mill, and they said, go to Prince George. In central British Columbia, it's a boom town. They're building lumber mills and all those kind of things. And so I did. I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and then I had, coming with the Greyhound here, I can still see it about 3 blocks away from here. So with my suitcase, as I said, 3 books and 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had exactly $25.47.
Wow.
But what I did have is, though, I had always, even going through all the ups and downs, I always had a positive attitude. I had always passion, but I give it 150% what I do. And then work ethic, I work harder. Even now at nearly 84, I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always think I'm late, and I always make my bed, and then every day is a good day in my books. And if things are a challenge, then tomorrow will be better. It took me 32 years after being here since 65, in 1997, that I went into a bookstore and I picked up a book. I still don't know why. The title of the book was Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Halliwell. And it was about ADHD. And then I said, oh my God, that's me. And so the more I found out about ADHD, the more I found that the frequency of occurrence, much higher than was indicated initially, was at least 20%. And so you are podcast number 251. I had the opportunity to interview my friend Dr. Halliwell, who wrote 18 books, is a doctor, has 5 books on distraction, and I interviewed him at my podcast 203, On the Brink 203. And so while we were discussing his book, he wrote the book in 2093. And so I bought it in 1997, and and there, nearly 25 years later, I had him on my podcast. So we talked about the frequency of occurrence. I said to him, I believe that the frequency of occurrence is probably closer to 20%. He said, no, John, closer to 25%. And then the other thing I said to him is that from my experience, that I believe among successful, and the operative is successful, entrepreneurs and CEOs, the frequency of occurrence is likely 50%. He said, no, John, more than 75%. And I agree with them. So that was another part of my life. And then I call it a superpower. And so I wrote a book about it, ADHD Unlocked.
Oh, sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Let's check that out.
So I just wanted to share that with you,
Yeah, I think there's a fair amount of similarities. I grew up on the farm. We had to get up at 5 or 5:30 every day. Went off to college. I continued that, and life is hard. And you either realize life is hard and you just say, "So what? So I'm just going to keep doing all that I can," or you complain. When I was growing up as a kid, if you complained, you got more chores.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we learned very early on to not complain. Like, okay, you just do the best you can.
Yeah. And then expectations were different as well, obviously. And I always kind of look back, Terry, to the past, although there were challenges along the way, and during the war years in particular and other times. But I believe that became a foundation for me that allowed me to do the things that I'm doing today. And, and then ADHD to me, although I discovered it late in life, but it kind of made me realize as to why I had struggles in particular with attention issues, and traditional schooling systems didn't work well for me. But I learned in other ways, and I've written already 5 books, and then I've been successful in business. And but at the same time, I call it a superpower, and I've been very proactive in speaking about it.
Good for you.
Now, before we go, I still want to know more about what's happening now in your life in terms of you are medically.
So medically, I'm doing extraordinarily well.
Right.
And when I see my neurologist, he continues to be impressed that, I continue to get steadily better, stronger, doing well, which of course, very unusual for someone with secondary progressive MS to be continuing to improve into their 60s. I'm 68. I'm not 85, so I'm a spring chicken compared to you, my friend.
Well, you look great, in my opinion.
But especially
considering all of that, Terry.
all that stuff that I've gone through.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
we've done many clinical trials. We have a study right now comparing the ketogenic, paleo, usual diet. And to learn more and be part of my clinical trials, you can go to terrywalls.com/MS study. And there's a link there where you could complete this, the survey and be part of our patient registry. Because people in our patient registry, when we have a new trial coming up, we'll send an email out and notify folks. So that's exciting. I have a couple more trials that we are writing, applying to our IRB so that we can hopefully get those going later yet this summer. A study looking at can we improve vision. So I'm very excited about that. And then we're going to have a big patient registry where people will be able to register and be part of our database for clinical trials. And again, if people just go to terrywalls.com, we'll have links to our survey, our studies, as these new studies are opened up.
So what makes it unique in your case in particular, being a medical doctor and and teaching at the still at the University of Iowa, and you become a model or an example of something that was thought could really not being done. You virtually,
we've changed. We're changing the standard of care. I tell my medical students in the postdocs that come to our lab and work with us that it takes 30 years to change the standard of care. I'm 15 years into this journey, John.
Yeah.
And now when I go to these scientific meetings, the other physicians, neurologists, scientists will recognize me, stop me, whip out their cell phone and ask if they could take a picture with me because their patients would appreciate it or their lab would appreciate it. And our papers are being cited. We're getting published in higher and higher impact journals. It's certainly a journey. We have another 15 years before it will become the standard of care, such that all the neurologists will be told that yes, we have FDA approved drugs, but just as important, people have to fix their diet. They need to exercise. That we have to address lifestyle factors.
Very, very important. And that may also apply to other considered be progressive diseases other than
absolutely.
MS, Right?
This is very important for avoiding Parkinson's, for avoiding Alzheimer's, for avoiding diabetes and those complications. If you want to thrive to 80, thrive to 100, thrive to 120, then this is all about our choices with food, our choices with sleep, our choices with exercise.
And especially as it relates to the last decades of our lives, that they don't have to be difficult. They can be everything that you do normally in normal
Correct.
life.
We want to be able to play with our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And I'm very, very excited to tell you, John, is I'm now a grandmother. So this afternoon I was over visiting my grandson, holding him, cuddling him, telling him about all the fun that we're going to have.
Amazing, eh? And especially if you look back and especially in your journey where that looks so dim and so difficult. Now the other part, Terry, that I find so amazing is that are you in Idaho now as we speak?
No, I'm in Iowa.
In Iowa. So there you are, sitting here looking at technology, sitting on a podcast where I'm in Central British Columbia, you're in Iowa, and the beauty of it is here we have a discussion about these amazing
tools,
things that we're talking about, like MS and medical issues and diets and all the other things that it can improve quality of life and things that people thought could not be done or were not possible, that we already know as we are watching this, that tens of thousands of people are watching us around the world. And
Yes,
that's
isn't it
the
wild?
amazing thing about, and it's just still at its beginning. You know, that I believe podcasting, or like what we are doing here, we're not only podcasting that will be shown tomorrow and will be shared with you tomorrow, but we are also doing live as we speak.
Oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, so
You know,
it's
it's really the pandemic, which forced all of us to learn how to interact virtually and use these
exactly.
technologies. We got better and better at learning how to interact virtually. So
Yeah.
there were some good things that came from that very difficult time in the world.
Yeah, no question about that. Cherry, it was a pleasure and a privilege to have you on my podcast. I really enjoyed it. It was in particular interesting when you told me to take my shirt off. So, Cherry,
Well,
it was,
I think you could go on the stage with Arnold, and I think you could win.
I like it. Cherry, it was a privilege, and I really enjoyed our podcast. And let's make sure we stay in touch.
Sounds wonderful.
Thanks, Terry.